Welcome everyone to Unsheathed Sword Reviews. I'm Vic.
And I'm John.
And today we're bringing you a review of the Balaur Arms LK Chen German Kriegsmesser. However you say that, it is a messer.
Yes. So I have a question, Vic. You mentioned that we're Unsheathed Sword Reviews, but I don't see any swords here. I just see a big giant knife. Like, what's going on with that?
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Right? Nor is it a sword. Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you don't know, there's these things called messers, and messers are swords. Kinda. They're also kind of knives. John, what the hell is this? And give us some deets about it.
Okay, so this is a weapon from the late medieval period and early Renaissance, so 15th, 16th century. And it is they have single-handed and double-handed messers. And essentially what it is that it is constructed. It's essentially a sword blade, like a falchion blade, essentially, that's constructed with what is really a knife hilt. And there's really no documented reason why they were made, because there really isn't any functional difference as a result of constructing the handle that way. But there are a couple of theories. The first theory, and probably the most valid one, is that it was a guild issue, and so that there were sword makers guilds, and then if you wanted to make something sword shaped but that couldn't have a sword handle, you would make a messer, which was a giant knife handle on a sword, basically. So that's sort of the more realistic reason. And then the funny reason is because, when the guards come to harass you because you're just a peasant and you're not allowed to carry a sword in town, not a sword, it's a knife. So, I like that answer better, but I don't think it's probably true.
It is very funny. And you hit the nail on the head. So these existed around the same time as falchions did. And falchions are essentially the exact same thing. In fact, the blades share a typology called the Elmsley typology. That breaks down all the different type of blades for them. And the only real difference is if it has a traditional sword constructed hilts like you'd see on an arming sword, it's a falchion. Mm-hmm. If it is a knife construction, meaning essentially two wooden pieces that go together through rivets on a full tang, then that is basically a messer. And you'll see close-up shots of this. It looks not unlike a kitchen knife.
A kitchen knife or like a Bowie knife, with scales on it. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely, that's what it looks like.
So that's what this is. It's a very unique sword, and to me, a very badass sword. Okay, so we need to talk about real quick what this line of swords are.
Definitely, I think that's important to mention for sure.
So this is from Balaur Arms, which you've probably seen as a brand that's popped up in Cult of Athena. They've had a few different forgers working for them. Previously, they were done by Windlass, and they were kind of in the budget range. And there's been some models that have now been made by LK Chen, the kind of well-renowned Chinese sword maker.
Yeah, and if you've watched the channel at all, you know that we're big fans of LK Chen around here. They're a really good bang for your buck manufacturer in terms of swords, so it's awesome to see that they're sort of branching out into a more European sword market, because they really do excellent work.
Yes, so he's made a number of medieval European swords, of which I purchased two. This was the one I was most excited about, just to get my hands on a Kriegsmesser. And also, with something made by LK Chen, I know that it's going to feel the way that it should feel. And that the fit and finish construction is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's more of a utilitarian fit and finish in a lot of ways than some higher end stuff, but it's definitely tight, and it handles how it's supposed to. So that's what we like about it.
And it should just be mentioned that previously there wasn't a lot of options in terms of Kriegsmessers. Albion had their Connect Mark II that, while it's been not in production for the last couple of years, when you could get it, it was $1,700. They don't pop up very often on the used market, and when they do, they go immediately. I know that Lance Connect Emporium has a couple Kriegsmessers, but they're north of $1,200, $1,000. Cold Steel recently came out with a messer that was in the $350 range, which is one we want to get our hands on to do a review. This is $468. So keep that in mind. That's solidly in the mid-range. Mm-hmm. Fit and finish wise, I think this is very, very well done. I think it's better than what its price point is. We'll talk about in a little bit, but in terms of the fit and finish, the guard and pommel are stainless steel. So this kind of has a dual integrated and peened construction, meaning that the grip has the scales that hold it in place, and then the very end does have a pommel cap on it. As you know me, one of the things that I look at that doesn't really matter, but it matters to me because I'm a little bit bougie, is how well the peens are done. Both the peen at the bottom of the cap and where the nail or naggle goes through the guard are perfect. The one on the naggle, you can't even really see it. It's been buffed so clean.
It's very, very well done.
This particular version of this sword, the guard has this twisted kind of metal screw look to it, which in pictures, I didn't know how much I was going to like that. I ended up really, really loving it because it adds an elegant of flamboyancy to this sword that very much fits with who would have used this historically.
Absolutely, which I think lines up nicely with the scabbard, which we can now show you.
Well, we don't have it with us, but through the magic of editing, it's going to be right here. So this is the scabbard that comes with the sword, and as you can see, it is wood cord, and it is wrapped in leather, and has some pretty intricate patterns and detailing on it, and the very shape of it, which is also metal, has like just elaborate decorations here that really match the quillions.
Yeah, and we'll put some close-up shots of that, but it really is pretty. And it's sort of in keeping with the flamboyant nature of the folks who would have carried these.
Would have been famously used by the German mercenary group, the Landsknecht. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation of that. But they have a reputation for being very flamboyant in like how they dress. They had a history of debauchery and drinking and gambling and that kind of thing. So like this kind of sword being more elaborate is exactly something that they probably would have used. So I feel like in terms of fit and finish, everything's tight. Everything feels good. My only little nitpick, and John, you mentioned this also, was if you choke up on the guard, some of the decoration and some of the lines are just a little bit sharp.
Yeah.
And create a little bit of hot spots.
And to me, that's more of a handling issue than a fit and finish issue because it looks great. I mean,
it does.
I normally don't like twisted quillions like this, and I really like it on this piece. I just happen to really like the way it looks. I think it looks great.
And so aesthetically, it has a fuller going on either side of the blade, which both terminate at the same place. Yep. Both look really, really well done.
Both in keeping with the curve of the minor curve of the blade. They look great.
Yeah, I can't get over how well done the fit and finish on this sword is. It feels like a much more expensive sword.
And I want to talk more about that too when we get to the value section, because I don't know how you make this $1,000 better. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out like how you do it, and I don't know how you do it. So I'm kind of interested about that. And a lot of the reason for that is what we'll talk about now, which is the handling. And, you know, we've talked before about various swords that are just absolutely feel like they're perfectly designed for what they're supposed to do. This feels like it is perfectly designed for what it is supposed to do. I can absolutely see this being used to take people's arms off, and just it's fast, it's light, it's agile. It is absolutely fantastic. I love this sword. I'm on a sword buying moratorium right now, and literally the handling of this sword has almost caused me to break my discipline and buy a sword, because at the price point that it's at, the way it handles, it knocks it out of the park. I can't even talk about it enough.
This is maybe at least in like the top 3 in terms of most fun swords I have.
Yes.
So we'll talk about the Distal Taper real quick. It's from 7 millimeters at the base down to 2 at the tip. You can see that by looking at the spine. It has a crazy amount of Distal Taper. This feels just as good in one hand as it does in 2. Like 2, you can get a lot of authority in your cuts, and it feels like it could really do some damage. But when you start moving it around in one hand, it feels like a one-handed sword.
Which blows my mind. It feels like it's an arming sword when it's
yes.
in your hand. It's that agile, and I think because you got that extra weight of the cap on the back, that maybe the longer handle with the cap kind of counterbalances the blade when you have it in one hand. But it really, really does perform beautifully. And
that's it, like in one hand. So the point of balance is 3.5 inches up from the guard, which is pretty close to the guard, which means like you have pretty good tip control. It's really good at thrusting.
It's really good at thrusting, and yet I don't feel like you sacrifice much authority in the cut, though. Mm-hmm. It's really perfectly balanced, I think, between cutting and thrusting, which is, I think Messer, cutting, and this thrusts a lot better than I would have expected it to. So one thing to mention on the handling of this sword is its listed specs in Cult of Athena. It had the weight at 3 pounds and 2 ounces. Mine actually weighs in at 2 pounds 12 ounces. Yeah, which is interesting because it's a fairly substantial difference. And also other reviewers, I think LK Chen, he reviewed it, and his was the same weight as the one you got, right? Yeah, it was about the same. So it doesn't seem like mine is an outlier in that. It seems like that might be just what they weigh. I don't know if that's just a misprint in what they have. Maybe their prototype version was a little bit heavier. That's my thought, is maybe they found a way to pull some weight off after the prototype. Who knows? But it makes it a livelier sword, and it's damn fun to play with. And so, yeah, I can't get over how fun this is, how fast it is, how agile it is, how much authority it has in the cuts. Like it has a lot of flex to it, while at the same time still feeling rigid and like it can pull off whatever you want it to do. Yeah. I'm impressed with this sword a lot. The only thing in terms, like we did mention the choking up on the guard. The other little thing in terms, I don't actually notice this in handling, but I don't know if maybe there was a temperature change or a climate change and the wood maybe shrank. But where the scales line up with the tang, you don't really feel it when you're gripping or moving around, but you can kind of get a nail and kind of just clip the tang. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. Which is the reason we were kind of thinking it might be a temperature issue, is because we did a review a while ago from Kalish Blades, did one of their kukris. And it came with a horn, right? Buffalo horn handle, and it did the same thing. Mm-hmm. When it got here, it was perfect, but then as the season here changed, the material contracted a little bit and revealed a bit more of the spine of the blade, or the spine of the handle. So I think that's probably what's happened here as well. Okay. Also, it's coming from China, which is a very different climate than here. Yes. So there's that to figure out. That's it. Too. Doesn't affect the handling. No, it sure doesn't. It doesn't at all. And to me, again, that hot spot up here near where where if you choke up on the guard is the only complaint I have about this sword at all. Yes. Like, I mean, honestly, if that wasn't there, if these were just rounded instead of square, it'd be a perfect sword. And again, I don't know where that extra $1,000 goes for one of these things.
Yeah, so like, and not that it's not, it doesn't bother you enough that would negate you from using it that way if you wanted to, but just hold it slightly lower down and you're perfectly fine.
Tiny bit, yep.
And so you're completely right. I'm sure that the Connect Mark II, the Albion Kriegsmesser, is better in all the ways that a Kriegsmesser from Albion would be better.
Sure.
I know that one is actually a bit heavier. I think it's actually what the listed weight for this one was.
Yep.
And I've looked at pictures of them side by side, and the grip does look kind of thicker and meatier and probably has more purchase in it. All that said, though, I'm sure that is a better sword. I don't know that it's over $1,000 better.
I don't know how it would be, honestly, unless, I can think of some illicit reasons it might go. Does it come with drugs? Because that's about all I can think of. Seriously.
We at Unsheathed Sword Reviews do not support or encourage you to do that at all, but just saying. Yes, so I don't know how that would be that much better, because I am absolutely blown away with this. Honestly, I would have paid $700 for this and been happy. Been totally happy.
I absolutely agree. Particularly, the handling's great. It looks great. It's beautiful. It comes with a really nice scabbard. I can't figure out how it's as cheap as it is, to be honest with you.
That was probably a spoiler to our overall value section, but yes, this is not just worth it. I can't believe this is as inexpensive as it is.
I completely agree. I can't imagine a sword that I think is a better bang for the buck than this one.
This, and just the Kriegsmesser in general, is a very unique and interesting sword type. It's very different from most of the other just medieval arming and longswords that I have. And so I'm very happy with this. I love this sword so much. Recency bias, it's one of my favorites. Recency bias might have a bit to do with that. I don't think so, though. It's just such a nice sword.
I think in a couple of years, you're still going to feel pretty much the same way about this as you do now. I think it's just a really great sword.
Yeah, buy it.
Buy it. Absolutely. I can't recommend it enough. Yeah. So, anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Peace.